Welcome to the identity industry, where society's confusion becomes capitalism's opportunity, and the only thing more profitable than race is the drama around it. The melanin meter. Because nothing says post-racial world like a handheld device that scans your skin and quietly whispers, whiteness not detected. One drop, one beep. It's basically Apple Health, but for people obsessed with racial categories. Then we've got the mixed and proud marshmallows. Because whether you're black, mixed, or somewhere between the census boxes, we all deserve snacks that reflect our identity crisis. 2 flavors, light-skinned lemon and darker than my parents said I'd be vanilla. Celebrate your flavor, literally.
Mixed or black, the truth society doesn't want to admit. Let's talk about something a lot of people tiptoe around like it's made of broken glass. The identity politics of mixed race. Everyone likes to act like this conversation is delicate, nuanced, untouchable. But the truth? It's actually not that complicated. It's just inconvenient. Inconvenient for whiteness, inconvenient for the racial hierarchy that has run this planet for centuries like a badly programmed operating system. And let's be real, when blackness and whiteness meet in one body, it's not a fair negotiation. One side takes the microphone, the other becomes background noise. The mirror test. I know a woman who's technically mixed race, 1 black parent, 1 white parent. She grew up in a white household, white siblings, white stepfamily, the whole we don't see colour fairy tale that white liberals love to sing. And when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see a blend, she doesn't see balance, she sees a black woman. When she walks into a room, that's exactly what white people see too. Not a mixed person, not a biracial person, a black woman. And she's not out here writing academic essays on why that is. She lives it. When she goes for a job interview or stands in a shop queue, she isn't treated like she's 50% white. That part of her identity isn't visible enough to shield her. She uses the term mixed sometimes, sure, but not as an identity, as a descriptor, a way to explain why her cultural background has a few extra layers, why she grew up with particular dynamics that people who are fully black or fully white might not understand. But when she says who she is, she says, I'm a black woman, full stop, the one-drop logic that never died. Let's not act like this is accidental. This is a historical design feature, not a glitch. The United States literally ran on the one-drop rule, the idea that 1 drop of African ancestry makes you black. It was a legal doctrine, political strategy, and social weaponry, all wrapped up in one neat poisonous package. Whiteness, as constructed in the West, isn't inclusive. It's exclusive by design. A club with velvet ropes, bouncers, and a very clear door policy. If anything non-white shows up, the white membership card gets revoked, and though the laws have changed, the perception hasn't. Centuries of this kind of thinking leaves grooves in a society's brain. It's muscle memory. People don't even have to consciously believe in the one-drop rule anymore. They act on it. They see someone with mixed black-white heritage, and the reflex kicks in, black. This is called hypodescent. It's the automatic classification of a person of mixed heritage into the group with lower social status. This isn't just an American thing either, it's psychological. People do it across cultures and across racial lines. Society doesn't see black and white mixed together and go, ah yes, balance. Society sees it and defaults to black, because whiteness was never designed to be shared. The psychology of racial categorization. Here's where things get spicy. Humans categorize people fast, too fast. We're talking sub-second facial recognition. Before someone's even said hello, the human brain has made snap judgments about their race, gender, and social category. This is where prototypes come in. A prototype is the mental image society associates with a group. For whiteness, that prototype is narrow and fragile. Step even slightly outside it and you're disqualified. For blackness, the prototype is broader, partly because it was built through colonial othering. White societies constructed blackness as a catch-all category for everything not white. That's why ambiguous faces tend to get dumped into the black box. Now layer in essentialism the idea that groups have some unchangeable inner essence. Whiteness, socially, is treated like it must be pure. Blackness is treated like it absorbs. So when the two meet, the psychological sorting mechanism isn't neutral. It follows centuries of bias. Black absorbs white, not the other way around. This is why a mixed black-white person can claim blackness and be accepted as black by both white people and often by black communities, but could never claim whiteness and be accepted as white. Whiteness doesn't bend, it breaks. Blackness, because it's been forced to hold multitudes, can stretch to include. That's the brutal asymmetry baked into this whole thing. The British remix. Now let's talk about the UK, because here the identity game plays out differently on paper. In Britain there's a tidy little tick box. Mixed or multiple ethnic groups. Sub-options like white and black Caribbean, white and black African, white and Asian. Bureaucratically, mixed exists as a category. Statistically, it's growing, but socially, it's messy. Mixed identity in Britain is a negotiation between perception, class, geography, and culture. In London, where the population is more diverse, mixed has more visibility and weight. Outside of those urban centres, the world gets narrower. Many mixed people in the UK identify as black because that's how they're treated. Some lean into mixed because they feel it gives their lived reality more precision, and many code switch their identity depending on who they're with. Around black people, they might simply say, "I'm black." Around white people, they might say, "I'm mixed." Not to dilute their blackness, but to control how they're framed. It's survival language, a linguistic shield. It's not hypocrisy, it's strategy. Mixed as adjective, black as noun. Here's the thing no one wants to say out loud. Mixed race functions more like an adjective in daily life than a noun. People use it to add nuance, to explain upbringing, family dynamics, culture. But when society categorizes, when power speaks, when race is weaponized or policed, black is what sticks. That's why so many people with one black parent and one white parent get pulled into blackness, whether they choose it or not. Society isn't asking them what they want to be called. Society has already decided identity versus perception. Identity is what you say about yourself. Perception is what the world says back. And these two things don't always match. Many mixed people identify as both. They feel both. They are both. But the perception they face is rarely balanced. A mixed person might go through life carrying a nuanced, layered identity in their chest and still be seen through a blunt instrument. The world doesn't care about nuance at first glance. It cares about what fits its pre-programmed racial scripts. And for black-white mixed people, that script rarely ever casts them as white. The politics of whiteness. Let's go deeper. Whiteness is not a neutral identity. It's a political category. Historically, whiteness has been carefully guarded through exclusion. Italians, Irish, Eastern Europeans, many groups had to become white over time, through social acceptance, economic mobility, and proximity to power. Blackness, meanwhile, was never offered that route. Black people weren't invited to assimilate into whiteness. They were cast as the permanent other. So when blackness enters a family tree, whiteness doesn't absorb it, it withdraws. This is why even today, when a mixed person with black ancestry walks into predominantly white spaces, whiteness doesn't recognize them as one of its own, and why in black spaces they're often accepted with far less resistance. The performance of identity. Mixed identity in practice becomes a performance of navigation. It's the art of reading the room. A mixed person can't just be, they have to calculate. Who's here? What will they assume? How do I want to be read? Am I asserting or explaining today? Am I blending in or holding my line? This isn't some abstract philosophical crisis, it's everyday reality. Identity isn't just a private feeling, it's also a performance staged on the world's assumptions. Psychological weight of non-whiteness. Here's where the psychology cuts deep. The non-white part of a person's heritage carries disproportionate social weight. If someone is black and white, they are not experienced by society as a blend, they are experienced as black. And that has real-world consequences. Job interviews, school discipline rates, stop and search encounters, healthcare, media representation. Mixed people with black ancestry often face the same patterns of discrimination as fully black individuals because society doesn't pass the nuance in real time. It reacts to phenotype, skin tone, hair texture, name, accent, cultural inheritance versus biological heritage. People love to talk about being half and half as if identity is a neat cocktail, but culture isn't a genetic fraction. You can be born into a mix of heritages and still grow up in one cultural context. You can have a white parent but grow up steeped in black cultural life, or the reverse. Culture doesn't divide evenly down the middle like a maths problem. This is why some mixed people identify as black, even if they were raised by their white parent, because cultural identity is shaped not only by family, but by how the world responds to them. A light-skinned person with curls, brown skin and black features isn't getting white privilege at the supermarket checkout just because their mum's white. They're getting followed like any other black person, and identity is forged in the heat of that reality, not in a family tree diagram. Mixed identity fatigue. One of the least discussed aspects of mixed identity is the fatigue, the constant explaining. Black people don't usually have to explain what they are. White people definitely don't. But mixed people get questions like, so what are you exactly? Where are you really from? Are you more black or more white? Why do you identify as black, but your mum's white though? This endless interrogation isn't curiosity, it's control. It's society trying to place you neatly into a box that doesn't exist for you. And that constant demand to explain can make people pick the path of least resistance, choose the category that the world already assigned, and that, more often than not, is black. Whiteness as a gate, blackness as a home. If whiteness is a gated community, blackness is the home built by those locked out. Whiteness has always relied on exclusion. Blackness has always had to hold space for the excluded. It's why mixed people with black heritage are often embraced in black communities in a way whiteness could never reciprocate. This isn't about romanticizing blackness. Black communities have their own complex conversations about colorism, privilege, and identity politics. But the fact remains, blackness has been conditioned to stretch. Whiteness has been conditioned to close the door. The sociological engine behind it all. Race isn't biological, it's sociological. It's a social sorting system dressed up as science, and this system was built on asymmetry. Whiteness is designed to protect its borders. Blackness is designed, or rather forced, to carry everyone else's projections. When someone says they're mixed, the racial machine doesn't hear nuance, it hears non-white, and files it accordingly. This is why mixed race is real in bureaucratic terms, census forms, demographic studies, diversity stats, but often not in social power, because the power structure doesn't care how mixed someone is. It cares whether they're inside or outside the gates of whiteness, and blackness has always lived outside those gates. The weight of the gaze. One of the most brutal truths of race is this: the gaze matters. It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself if the world is determined to read you another way. Identity is both internal and external, and mixed people, more than anyone, live at the crossroads of those two realities that you can identify however you want. But when a police officer, a teacher, an employer, or a stranger on the street looks at you, what they see shapes how they treat you. And what they often see in the case of black-white mixed people is blackness, the myth of balance. People love the fantasy of half and half. It sounds neat, it sounds equal, it sounds like some post-racial kumbaya future. But in practice, there's no such thing as a neat 50-50 identity when race is involved. Race isn't a fraction. It's a hierarchy, and in that hierarchy, blackness isn't given equal weight to whiteness. It's given defining weight. That's why so many mixed people say things like, I identify as black, but I use mixed to describe my background. because deep down they know how the world sees them, and it's just easier to lean into the label society already put on them than to fight it every day of their lives. The psychological toll. This has a psychological cost. Being mixed in a society built on rigid racial categories means constantly managing tension, not just external tension, internal too. The world says one thing about who you are, your heritage says another, and you're stuck translating, mediating, performing, adjusting. Some embrace both sides proudly and find balance. Others pick a side to survive. Some float between, adapting to context. But none of them get to exist without confronting that invisible power line, whiteness as gatekeeper, blackness as default. Who gets to claim what? Here's the kicker. A black-white mixed person can claim blackness and be accepted. A white-black mixed person cannot claim whiteness and be accepted. This isn't symmetrical, and it never has been, because whiteness isn't designed to be shared. That's the reason why, despite the growing number of mixed people around the world, whiteness hasn't become more inclusive. It hasn't opened its doors. It simply adjusted its gaze to recognize mixed people as non-white. The rise of mixed visibility. We're entering an era where more people are openly mixed than ever before. More children are born into mixed families. More conversations are happening about nuance, culture, and belonging. But let's not pretend this automatically changes how race works. Visibility isn't the same as power. The existence of mixed people doesn't dismantle racial hierarchy. It reveals it more clearly. It forces society to confront the fact that these categories were never neutral to begin with. Colorism and privilege. Of course, not every mixed experience is identical. Colorism exists. Lighter-skinned mixed people can have access to privileges darker-skinned black people don't. But here's the trap. Proximity to whiteness isn't the same as belonging to whiteness. Mixed people can benefit from lighter-skinned privilege in some contexts, but that doesn't make them white. Society might give them a different seat at the table, but it's not inside the gated community. It's just closer to the fence. Identity as resistance. For many mixed people, identifying as black isn't self-erasure. It's resistance. It's acknowledging the reality of how they're perceived and aligning their identity with the truth of their lived experience rather than the fantasy of a racial middle ground that doesn't really exist. Mixed is often used strategically to tell the full story, but black is the identity that anchors them in a world that has already decided how to read them. Society's refusal to see complexity. Society doesn't like complexity. It wants easy categories, it wants clean lines. Mixed people are messy. Their existence alone is a glitch in the system. So society does what it always does. It simplifies. It strips the complexity down to the easiest, laziest label. And because of how racial hierarchies were built, that label is usually black, reclaiming the narrative. But here's where the script flips. Mixed people aren't just passive subjects of this system. They're also active narrators. They can choose to identify however they want. They can claim mixed, black, both, neither. They can build their own language, their own spaces, their own narratives, but pretending that society is neutral in this equation is a lie. And telling the truth means acknowledging the weight that blackness carries in the public imagination. Mixed race is real, but it's not equal. It's a category recognized on forms but not respected in perception. It's an identity with cultural depth but unequal social weight. It's the adjective to blackness's noun. Whiteness remains a guarded gate. Blackness remains the default when those two worlds collide. The world may dress it up in new language, biracial, dual heritage, mixed race. But the engine underneath is old, loud, and humming the same tune it always has. Non-white is the category that sticks. So when someone with a black and white heritage says they identify as black, it isn't confusion, it isn't denial, it's clarity, it's the clear, unblinking recognition of how the world works. Because no matter how many people tick the mixed box until whiteness gives up its monopoly on itself, mixed race will remain a descriptor, not a shield, and blackness will keep being the name society calls first. Not right, not left, just real.